Can you believe people actually thought girls could not have ADHD? That is incorrect. Girls went undiagnosed, underdiagnosed, or misdiagnosed, just like me. While it's true that girls were part of the early studies of ADHD, what they were looking for was hyperactivity and was thought to be kinetic or behavioral issues. Girls with inattentive ADHD went completely unnoticed. I suspected I had ADHD, but I didn't know the impact it had on my life. What I knew was something was different about me. I was called weird, I was called absent-minded, I was too smart for my own good, whatever that means. I made math a competition. Me and my friends would compete for the highest grade in the math class, and of course I won. My family were huge card players. They would play this game called canasta, and you could use like 7 decks in that game. And once the adults were done, I would go through and separate each of the decks to make sure everyone had exactly what they needed. I remember walking down the street and counting my footsteps. I was obsessed with listening to music and drawing and reading. I would sit and read the encyclopedia, dictionaries, concordances, obsessed. I would spend hours on the things that I enjoyed, but I did not take direction very well. Of course, I talked too much. My grandmother bought me a shirt that said, "I can talk my way out of anything." I would often get in trouble for talking back or saying the first thing that was on my mind. I liked throwing things and I would jump over and off things. I had the typical signs of ADHD and still went undiagnosed. I'm pretty sure my mom has ADHD too, and she was a young mom. So I was very comfortable being myself at home, but I was very uncomfortable in school or with my family or cousins and my peers. I remember having deep feelings of loneliness, anxiety, and depression at a very young age, and that followed me well into my adulthood. That was the reason I created this channel. I wanted this to be a place where you could be yourself, a place to learn, ask questions, get answers, build a community. And I wanted to thank you for 200 subscribers. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do, and like this video so other people can join our community. As I got older, my mental health got worse. I thought that there was something wrong with me. I would be 24/7, go, 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 but the smallest inconvenience and I would burst into a panic attack. And then that turned to burnout and then depression. I just couldn't manage the responsibilities of adulthood. And I had a great support system, but the advice that they were giving me wouldn't work. The more I worked on myself, the more I felt like I was failing and the worse I felt about myself. My family encouraged me to seek therapy, and I considered it, but I really didn't want to. The clinic I was going to provided resources in rotation for me and people who didn't have good access to healthcare. And they had a psychiatrist on that rotation that cemented my aversion to therapy. Eventually, I started seeing a CBT. That's a cognitive behavioral therapist. Stick around to the end of the video. I'll let you know how you can get a list of professionals that treat mental health. Together, my CBT and my PCP were so kind, and they were committed to helping me find the right medications for me. I tried different medications, and I thought I found the right ones, but with each one, I would hit this plateau, and regardless of the medications, I never really felt myself. I really liked my CBT, but eventually she left the clinic to pursue more education and open her own practice. Before she left, I asked her what she had been treating me for, because CBTs can't diagnose, but they do have to go to your insurance for authorization. She said she had been treating me for hypomanic depression, which is bipolar 2 disorder. I was devastated, and I cried about it for weeks. By this point, I was on 3 medications for mental health, and I wasn't taking them all that regularly. I would either forget to refill the prescription or forget to pick them up. My doctor wrote me up for non-compliance and told me she would not fill my prescriptions until I went to a medication management program. I was a mess. It was the worst 10 days of my life, but it was the right choice. I was looking for answers, and I wanted to see somebody who could diagnose and prescribe medication and who had a better scope of knowledge than my PCP. Psychiatry was too expensive and my insurance wouldn't cover it, but I eventually found 2 clinics. One clinic where I would see an LPCC for therapy, and another where I would join a medication management program and speak to a psychiatric nurse practitioner. Researching stuff like this was overwhelming in itself, and I didn't have medication, so I was literally going nuts, but I saved my research. If you're seeking therapy or medication and you don't know who to go to, use the link in my description to join my mailing list. You'll get a cute welcome note, and I'll send you a list of mental health professionals, their titles and abbreviations, so you know exactly who does what. As I started to build a more active online presence, I would talk to people about mental health. I was not shy, but I couldn't outrightly say that I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. And the reason was because I wasn't sure. I had other symptoms that went unexplained. But the more I kept talking about my symptoms, the more Instagram would send me posts, ads, profiles about ADHD. I went to my PNP one day and she straight up told me, "I don't think you have bipolar disorder. I think you have ADHD." And it turned out that my LPCC specialized in treatment for ADHD. My goal for the medication management program that I was in was to get off or take fewer medications. And before changing my treatment plan with my LPCC, she had me write down what symptoms I thought could be bipolar disorder and what symptoms I thought could be ADHD. And a lot of the symptoms overlapped. But the major difference was the mania associated with bipolar disorder was not typically based on life events. Most of the things I struggled with were issues of executive function. Things like paying attention, working memory, task initiation or switching from task to task, being easily distracted, impulsivity, and self-control. I made a funny video about lesser known symptoms and traits of ADHD and started talking to people who had the same experience that I did. Follow me on Instagram to join the conversation. So there was a shift in my treatment. We started using tools that fit my brain, and we changed medications to something that was specifically for ADHD. You don't have to take medication to treat ADHD. Whether you do or you don't is okay, and there's no shame either way. But that was my choice, and I felt relieved. Knowing that the struggles I had had for most of my life wasn't because something was wrong with me. It was because I was working against my brain. My brain was unique. I've learned more about myself and about ADHD in the last 2 to 3 years than I had in the 26 years before being diagnosed. And I'm happy to share that with you. Leave a comment below if you have any questions about ADHD or if you have any suggestions for videos.